You're listening to the Brilliant Breakthroughs Podcast with your host, Maggie Magen.
Hi, small business owners. Welcome to the Brilliant Breakthroughs Podcast, where we focus on creating brilliant breakthroughs for the small business owner. FYI, this is also the name of the #1 Amazon best-selling business book series for small businesses. Wow, that's really long. Titled Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner. Subtitle is Fresh Perspectives on Profitability, People, Productivity, and Finding Peace in Your Business. You can get a digital copy or paperback by going to Amazon. And today, the book that we're referencing is volume 2 with the emerald green color. So today's conversation is with #1 best-selling business author from the 2018 book, Becky Norwood. Welcome, Becky.
Oh, thank you for having me here. Love it. Good to see you again.
It's going to be such fun. And I guess I should introduce myself as well, right? Okay, so rock stars, my name is Maggie Magen, and I'm the #1 best-selling business author and founder of that great annual book series we are talking about. For over 15 years, I've been a master business coach and trainer. So enough about me. Let's get on to why we're here today, and that is about Becky Norwood. I want to say congratulations, Becky. #1 best-selling business author. That's pretty impressive.
I love it, and it's a wonderful position to be in, because I think that the written word is probably one of the biggest resources for us as business owners, as entrepreneurs, that we can use to showcase our expertise. It's powerful.
Amen to that. So everyone, Becky wrote in that green covered book, volume 2, and her chapter is the 5th one in the book, and it's titled Spotlighting Yourself as an Undeniable Expert in Your Industry, which is pretty cool. And we know it works because there's all sorts of reasons why we should author and why people should read to learn. And we're not talking about the fluffy book here where it's a feel-good moment. We're talking about a resource book. So when I ask Becky the next couple questions, I'll be asking her, I want you to know that we're coming from authoring and showcasing your expertise as a resource. Does that sound fair, Becky?
It's perfect. And I think it's a powerful way because, you know, we have a tremendous amount at our fingertips right now, as far as we live in a different world than marketing was 15, 20 years ago.
Yes.
By far 50 years ago, because everything had to be pretty much face to face. Now we have the world with our phones, let alone not anything else, let alone our phones. We have the computer, we have the internet, we have social media, we have many, many, many things at our disposal, which gives us a worldwide audience to reach. But it isn't about the fluff. It isn't about all the stuff that is out there. What it is about is you becoming a resource and being looked at as a resource in whatever your area of expertise is. It's really important.
Right, becoming, and people sometimes don't understand the power that authoring has, because authors do get to become a resource for whatever their topic is. And sometimes, yes, that resource is for entertainment. But in this case, we're talking about how you can position yourself in a very different way in the marketplace. And you're the master at helping authors with that.
Well, you know, it's been quite interesting for me, because I started out by authoring my own personal book, and it was a story about my past called The Woman I Love. And what evolved from there was realizing the power of becoming an author and a resource, and educating as you become that resource, the education. And so my book, I'm working on another book, but it is because I'm now a self-publishing expert. I've been able to bring over 200 authors to #1 bestseller. But in
Wow.
that evolution of this business, I learned that it wasn't just that now we could self-publish our books and get them out to the world, because there's over 1 million books being published every year in the United States. And if we don't incorporate some very key items into our book writing process, and we don't educate and we don't become a resource, that book's going to get lost in the cobwebs of cyberspace. It's going to get lost in the plethora of books that are out there. So, it becomes crucial that when you decide to write a book to showcase your expertise, that you implement not just the book writing process, not just becoming an author of your book, but all the little things that you can do to get that exposure and to provide value. The value that you share will have them come back for more. And one of the things that I'm discovering, and which you're a prime example of, is if you're going to write one book, don't stop there. Because if they love that book, they're going to come back and they want to know more about the next book and the next book. And that's what the top educators in my market, those that are also working with others in the self-publishing realm, like I do, they're saying, don't do one book. If you're going to do just one book, maybe just reconsider. Do a series of books. And that series can be 1 year after another. Doesn't mean that they have to be right on top of each other. But as you build your credibility, you become a resource for those that are looking for that content. And I can say, for myself, the self-publishing world has drastically changed over the years since it's become available to us. And so I'm constantly in learning mode. And I seek out those that have gone before me or that are ahead of me in the game that have maybe more experience, and I learn from the best. And that's what we want to become, each one of us that use becoming an author to establish our credibility. We want to be looked at as that best resource. And how do we do that? But by tapping in to not only authorship, but all those other little pieces that go into the getting on podcasts like this, like we're doing right now, offering courses, being seen, being where people come to know, like, and trust you because you are respected for the content that you bring to the world.
I couldn't agree more. I know that so many people think that once you write the book, as they say, the book or my book, they're done. And I want to share with everybody, and I know you're going to echo this in a moment. It wasn't even one of the things we planned on talking about, but the power that one book can create for us to continue to educate through all those different resources you said, speaking, courses, podcasts, programs. It doesn't matter, from the stage, endless opportunity. But the key is to continue with whatever it is you have created, because people are hungry for wisdom that they can apply.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is essential. And that's where the magic is. It's not just like, oh, I released a book and it rocked and, I'm #1, but what are you doing with it afterwards? And how are you continuing to share that message in other ways? And that also promotes the book. So then other people are introduced to it, right?
That's the key is, as I've been building my book publishing packages for my clients, when I first started publishing, it was all about just publishing and making sure they became #1 bestsellers. And since then it's evolved, and I have brought together a really cool smorgasbord of experts in their own special niche. And in fact, you're one of my experts, and you're going to be teaching blogging as part of that, what we're teaching our authors. And somebody else is teaching how to use a mobile app to get the message out. Somebody else is, how do you get onto stages and make a difference speaking to audiences around the world? How about podcasting? Audiobooks, powerful because you reach a whole different audience. Social media. And one of the things is, when we hear all these things, most of us get like completely overwhelmed at the thought of it. Even using video to get our message out. And that's the beauty of using a platform like what we are. We can take this, using Zoom, we can take the recordings and do a podcast, convert it into a podcast, and we can take the recordings and convert it into a video because of the power of what Zoom is. Those are the things we have at our fingertips. But the beauty of it is, we have discovered in working with our authors that they many times don't know of what they can tap into and the doors of opportunities becoming an author is. But it's like, well, don't start there. And within the pages now of many of the books that we're publishing, we encourage them to do a video series.
Right.
So that all it is we use a QR code in some of the chapters of the book where it's scan the code and it's you're speaking, so they get the essence and the flavor of who you are and can tap into that. Others is, for the written word, it's a link that they have to go type in, but it still allows them to get the feel of who you are all about. But what that does, it opens the door for being invited onto speaking opportunities. It opens the door for new business. It showcases you because you are establishing your expertise, and that's the most powerful thing.
Right. And oh, we could go on for hours about this. Okay, so what Becky just started to do was introduce you to different ways that the authoring effect comes into play, because authors still have this mystique around them. Now, self-publishing has changed that a little bit, and it's sometimes it's really clear who's self-publishing and who isn't. And one of the things that's really fascinating about your process, Becky, is you're functioning as a full publisher, but you're doing it for people who want to self-publish, which is a little different concept. It's a hybrid, right?
Right, it is. Yeah.
It's quite unique, and it's extraordinarily effective. And the reason why I love what you're doing is because there's so much more to it. As you started to say, the author's impact, they get respect in the marketplace. They become an authority just because they have a book. I was fascinated to hear from one of the speakers bureaus the difference you can command for working or presenting on stage just because you're a best-selling author.
Right.
Of course, there's some caveats with that statement, but it was amazing to see those numbers and how it catapults people into a different realm. Of course, the key is if your book is produced well. Okay.
It's a big if, and honestly, I was at an event recently. Now, this guy is a published author, and I picked up his book, and he teaches a lot of courses with it, and it's more mindset related.
Mm-hmm.
But his book, I was like appalled because it felt like a walking advertisement.
Ooh.
And there were grammar errors, there were spelling errors. The layout was not for easy readability. And I didn't even make it through the whole book because it felt like a walking advertisement. And that's not what we're talking about.
Mm-mm. No,
This
not
is
at all.
not, because if you don't showcase your expertise and expand on it, and that's where what I encourage with my authors that come to me is let's incorporate the art of storytelling. Let's give them a reason to connect with you and weave storytelling all throughout what you're teaching, because human beings connect to story. And if you can tell a story that helps them connect, that relatability factor, they're going to listen. They're going to listen a lot more. They're going to read more. They're going to watch more for other books and other material and courses and whatever else you're doing, and look for opportunities to hear you on the stage. So,
Right.
so it's, it's been amazing to work with authors, and many times we've put off a book launch simply because we needed to fine tune what they've written, because it needed to have more story woven into it. It needed to be more of a showcase of their expertise. And some people don't think that they should brag on their wisdom and expertise, but they should, and not brag in the sense of bragging, but by showcasing through weaving storytelling into their whole balance of it all.
Wait, everyone pay attention to what Becky just said, because if you're considering authoring, that is essential. And matter of fact, that's been something very difficult for me to embrace through my authoring journey, because I was always taught, be humble, be humble, be humble, be modest. And yes, and you still need to share with everybody how awesome you are and what you can help them transition through to get them whatever it is they seek. Because if you don't do it, somebody else will.
Absolutely, very much. Yeah, and that is the key, is that, and it doesn't mean bragging, it doesn't mean boasting, it doesn't mean anything like that. It's just give value when you share.
If they know, yes, if they know that you can guide them through something, or you have the experience that they're seeking, that's the value that they will connect with. And then it's not bragging.
Mm-mm.
It's not boasting. It's just sharing, this is what my experience has been. This is what my pocket of wisdom is. And if it is something that intrigues you, well, let's talk more.
Right.
Period.
Yeah. And one of the things about becoming an author is when your book is well written and when you share a lot of your wisdom and you share your expertise, it opens the door, not just maybe for being a podcast expert, a radio interview, it can get you even onto TV. It can, it can open a million different doors that maybe would have never been open to you. And it is a crucial piece of growing your business. And I always call it, when I'm referring to publishing and why, is it, and I did this in my presentation yesterday, I handed somebody a book and said, if I gave you this as instead of my business card, and I had it signed it and given it to you, what is your reaction? And he was like, because he was happy to have a book. I said, well, business cards, I have stacks of business cards. We try to take good care of them, but typically they get put in as a little stack. And if I'm thinking about that individual, I'll go hunt down that business card. But a book is going to stay on a shelf. And if it doesn't get read right away, at some point it's going to be picked up and it's going to get read. And at the right time.
Right. Or they'll move it to somebody who would appreciate it.
Right. Yeah.
Much more than getting put into a garbage can like so many business cards do.
That's right. Yeah.
I agree with you on that about influencing the marketplace. A gentleman met with me and he said, I'm interviewing business coaches in the local geography. And I said, okay, fine. For why? Not great grammar, but why? And he went on to explain to me, and he said, so I'd like to know a little bit about who you are and what you do. And I said, do you like reading? And he said, I am a voracious reader. And I said, wonderful. And I reached down into my bag and I pulled out our book. I said, I put money where my mouth is, and it's in written word right here for you. And I said, please go ahead and read this, and you will know everything I'm up to. He came back and he said, I want to have another meeting with you, Maggie, because apparently no one else he was speaking to had a book.
And you know, it's funny because I wrote my books on The Woman I Love and We Choose to Thrive, and those were for completely different purposes, and they have had impact. But I have not written my own book on being a self-published author. And it's funny because and it's mostly because I've been so busy working with my clients and helping other authors, but now it's on my radar simply because as I speak and as I do the things I do, people ask me, where's your book? And the book that I wrote, the other books that I wrote were not on this type of subject matter. So I need to showcase my own expertise.
Right.
But you know, I have a lady that, the name of her book was When Death Comes Knocking on Your Patient's Door. And it's a guide for nurses and palliative caregivers. And when she published, it was just something that was just in her heart. She had been a palliative caregiver for many, many years in a nursing position and had experienced many, many things. And she said that so many of the new nurses coming in don't understand the human part of it. And she says when you start dancing on your patient's dance floor and the life lessons that you encounter. But her book has reached and opened doors for her. She's speaking on many stages. Complete nursing schools are buying her book.
Oh, wonderful.
You know, so it's opened doors for her that she'd never expected, and she was getting close to retirement, but now it's opened doors for her to expand on it by the use of a course, you know, and another book. So and her years and years and years of experience in that nursing field she's taken that knowledge and wisdom and put it to where now it's required reading in many of those schools.
I love
because she
hearing
has that beautiful human touch to it. So if you ask yourself, what do I have to write about? What are your years of experience? What has that wisdom brought to you?
Becky's exactly right, and I want everybody to just think about that. What is my expertise? What are my years of experience? What do I know that somebody else may not?
And needs to hear.
And needs to hear. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll share with our listeners right before this, I had told Becky before we did this recording that I had a very interesting conversation with somebody today that said, I just want you to know, work with a group of professional women and we're going to use your book for our book club. And I was just so taken back. I'm like, wow, I never even had that on a radar screen, but how cool is that?
Wow.
Yeah, to be able to, because she knew, now she's sharing it with others that are going to find value in that pocket of wisdom that is written in that one book. And I'm like, there it is. That is the author effect and how we can move into and create marketplaces that might not have even been there before.
Mm-hmm.
So you do great work, Becky. I hope everyone who's listening to this takes heed to what you're sharing. And I know we'd like to share more, so good thing we have 3 more episodes coming up with you in the near future. Yay! Is there anything else you'd like to part with before we wrap up here?
I think the biggest thing is that when you write a book, you can leverage that content. And by that, I mean, if you're blogging, you can take the content that you wrote in that book and use it for many, many different blog posts. You can use it for your podcast. You can use it for your video content that you produce. You can use it for your social media. So it's not something that should become like a complete and total overwhelm. Is learn how to repurpose your content so that you use it in many different ways. And I think that's something that when we talk about, oh my goodness, I've got to get on the stage and speak, and oh goodness, I've got to keep up with my social media. Oh, I have to, I've got all these things to do. Repurpose your content.
Or for those who are already content rich, you may have your book already written.
Yeah, I had somebody
creating.
I had somebody bring 10 podcasts to me and say, I need these transcribed because this is the basis of a book.
Right.
So, beautiful.
Right. Okay. So that's great. I'm glad we asked for that, because many people out there already are sitting on plenty of content. They've just not thought to move it to a book.
Right.
Okay. And then, of course, it works the other way as well. All right. Well, listeners, this is how you can learn more and engage with #1 best-selling business author, Becky Norwood. Go ahead and start by reading Chapter 5, titled Spotlighting Yourself as an Undeniable Expert in Your Industry. Probably makes more sense now that we had that conversation, right?
Yeah.
And that's in the #1 bestseller, Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner, Volume 2. And go ahead and gift your business's performance by accepting Becky's invitation that's at the bottom of her author page. You're going to be amazed. It's relevant and it's free for the taking. So take her up on that. Plus, at the end of her chapter, she also has all sorts of social media handles for you to connect with Becky Norwood as well. So here's something really cool. Right now, you can see everything about the book and how to get a hold of it, as well as Becky, by going to your app store and typing in Brilliant Biz Book. All one word, Brilliant Biz Book. And what you will do is you'll get our app, and you're going to love that, because we have all of our podcasts recorded there that you can click on. So one-stop shop. She's holding it up right now. I wish y'all could see that. But there's something really cool on that app that is highly valuable. We have an area titled Ask an Expert, and you'll see Becky Norwood's name there. Click on it, type in your question, and it'll get sent right to her, and she'll respond back to you. That's a pretty cool bonus, I think.
That's awesome. If I remember to use it.
Yeah, we should be using it ourselves, right? Okay, and I want to thank you for your time and your wisdom sharing today, Becky.
Thank you for having me. This has been delightful.
It is, and there's so much for everybody. So I'm glad we cracked it open just a little more today.
Awesome. I appreciate being here.
All right, and thank you.
Thank you for your friendship.
Thanks. And ditto. Listeners, we appreciate you listening to the Brilliant Breakthroughs podcast, where you learn how to create more brilliant breakthroughs for your small business. We'll be back next week, and until then, shine brightly.